Welcome to the Money to the Masses podcast, putting you in control of your finances. It's a good thing podcasts are free, as this one isn't worth a penny. Here are your hosts, Damien Fahy and Andy Leeks.
Now, Damien, before we get on with this week's podcast, you had something quickly to say about our sponsors.
Yeah, we've got a new sponsor, Money Farm, and Money Farm are an online investment advisor and one of the biggest digital wealth management companies in Europe. So a big thank you to them for sponsoring the podcast. Now, Money Farm create portfolios to maximise long-term returns using ETFs to make incredibly cheap portfolios. And you even get the first £10,000 of your portfolio invested without any charge from Money Farm. And if you enter the code MTTM20K into the box when you sign up, you get the first £20,000 of your portfolio invested and run by moneyfarm.com without any charge.
Great stuff. On with this week's show. Hello and welcome to episode 118 of the Money to the Masses podcast with your resident expert, as always, Damien Fahy, and me, Andy Leeks. Damien, welcome back. How you doing?
Good, Andy. Very good. Been a whirlwind week. I just have one of those. It's one of those weeks where I just feel like I've not been still or in one place for any length of time. You know, when you're even in the evenings, I'm out doing things with either people networking. You know, some interesting things going on in the world in terms of technology. So what they call fintech. It's quite good to go and see some of that stuff. And also, there's a lot of things I'm doing on 80/20. I just feel like this is the first time I've had a chance to pause and record the podcast with you, Andy. But there you go. How have you been?
I've been good. Yeah, quite the opposite, actually. I've had a fairly chilled week. The week before, I'd been rushing into London every day, doing stuff with auditors, and it was all a bit crazy. This week has been much more relaxed, so I do feel your pain. Quick question on your side of things. When it's like that, obviously it's good. The time flies by. Do you feel like you're sort of the jack of all trades, master of none? Do you like basically? Do you like?
What are you trying to say?
Do you like it when you've got one really big task that you sort of, you have to sort of slowly work your way through, or do you like it when you're literally, you don't know where your head's at, you're going from one thing to another? Obviously you can't choose in your sort of your line of work. You have to go with wherever you're needed. How does it work?
No, I think it's a valid point. I'm one of these people that once I get my teeth into something and start, it's the getting over the starting bit, then I will just go full on, almost obsessive, not eat, not drink until I get the job done. But then sometimes it's quite refreshing to have change and things mixed up. And it's one of I tend to, when I'm in that mode of it being changing, and like next week, for example, I've got loads of things. I'm doing some talks actually next week, and I'm cramming in various meetings with people as well. So I almost go feast and famine. I tend to go through a period where I'll be almost don't even know what day of the week it is because I'm all over the place with things I'm doing. And then I just need a period where I can sit back and then refocus on what I'm doing with the site and everything and things like the podcast, which I like. It's kind of brings you back, and what used to be when I first started out something that was quite hard work and intensive, which it still is, but it's almost that feels like the taking your foot off the pedal, if that makes sense, when you're doing something that is still hard work and intensive, but it's not as crazy as the other stuff. So I kind of like a bit of both. I like to mix it up, but there's nothing, you can't beat a period where you can get stuck into something, whether it's recording podcasts or writing or something like that. I did a lot of writing this week on various things like where to invest your stocks and shares ISA and stuff like that, which actually could have made a good piece for this week's podcast. Maybe I'll come back to that at a later date, but stuff like that is really meaty, that you can't shy away from it. You just have to put your thoughts on the page, and it can actually be, it becomes thousands of words, but as concise as you can, if that makes sense. You don't want 1,000 words sort of just rambling. It's trying to get everything in a way that is engaging as well. So yeah, it's actually a good point. I like a bit of both. If I'm honest, I tend to veer towards like get stuff done. I could get my teeth stuck into something. Otherwise, if I break it up too much, I just don't get it done.
The only reason I ask is because with the work that I do, I have a very structured day job and a very non-structured sort of evening and weekend pastime, which is my writing. And I find the writing side of it much more difficult because you have to be very self-motivated, which obviously being self-employed and having your own business like you do, that's what you have to do. So I should maybe try and learn from you. And the reason I say that is when I'm writing, obviously I'm writing on a device that's normally connected to the internet. And I find with the internet, the fact that you're connected to everything in the world ever, I find that a bit of a distraction. Because I'll give you an example. Last night, I wasn't doing writing actually. I was trying to watch a film. I went to bed early and thought I'm going to get a film in. Started watching a film, saw someone on the film that I thought I recognised, decided to Google their name. When I Googled their name, it put a list of credits and then it said other films that this person was in. So I went onto YouTube, checked that out, saw the other films that they were in, realised that they'd also been a singer. So I went and checked out a few of their songs.
It was like a butterfly effect of distraction.
3 hours later, I only got 5 minutes into the film.
YouTube is terrible for that. I'll tell you what, here's a tip for people out there. If you're going to try and write or you're going to want to do your own blog, in fact, that links very nicely to a piece I'm doing today on money bloggers and people who start writing and then they turn it into a business or a sort of pastime or whatever. And there's an app out there for Macs, which, I mean, I use a Mac called Ulysses. And it's not cheap. It's actually an app that will cost you... It costs, I think, even for the desktop version, probably about £18. But what's very neat about it is it limits everything that you can do, and you actually write in a way of it isn't... You don't worry about formatting or anything like that. You can just chuck down certain bits of syntax, and then you can export it into whatever you want, whether it's Word, if it's publishing, websites, and it will look awesome. But it actually just takes you away from doing things in browsers and stuff like that. And you can actually get it on iPads, iPhones, and you can just shut yourself away from the world and not be distracted as much. So it's quite a good one.
That is interesting that you're almost paying money to dumb it down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the way that the world moves and it's moving forward in this fast pace, we're actually, in a way, a bit like mobile phones. They went really, 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 really small. And then people realised, no, that's ridiculous. We want something a bit bigger. And then they kind of branched out. This is kind of happening with this kind of thing, whereas it's all moved really fast paced and suddenly there's apps out there that basically stop you doing stuff.
Yeah, just quickly on the apps, which is, again, something I was doing this week, money related, that it's quite interesting to see that the world of finance is moving in such a way that you can now bank exclusively via apps. So there are banks out there that will enable you, the only interaction you have is via an app. And because that's the way they feel people are moving and people want that lack of... they don't want to have to go to banks, so they don't want to have to go to a branch or anything like that, and they don't want to go online. They just want a very slick interface. So it's interesting. The way of dumbing down, they're actually, in finance, that is what's happening. They're trying to... These disruptors and fintech companies are realising that people are, like you're saying, on devices, getting distracted, and they want to use that device to do everything. They're actually using that exclusively as the way that they run their money. So that's quite an interesting take or spin on what you're just talking about.
Good. Okay, well, we talked a lot there about what we've been up to and things like that. You touched on earlier about money bloggers, so that's one of the things we're going to be touching in this week's pod. What else have we got coming up?
Yeah, the money bloggers piece, I want to just talk through a few of those because there's some interesting people out there. I like to promote them. Some of them I know personally. I've met all of them. So they've got their own niches and nuances of what they do, which people who listen to this podcast will find invaluable. Some of them are down to coupons, etc. I also there's two pieces that come via questions that were sent in. One is to how to control spending on high-end hobbies. So in this case, cycling, things that you actually spend a lot of money. And the other one is about if you're starting out investing. I've just asked the question, what should they be investing in? And I want to talk about something that's quite exciting on that. And this could be 4 pieces actually this week. There's a scam that's going around on Gmail. Now, Gmail is probably the most popular, or if not the most, or in the top few most popular email providers that people use. And there's a extremely convincing scam that's going around on it. It's even caught some of the best IT people out there, and they've been stung. So I'm going to cover that and tell people what it's about and how to protect themselves. So which do you want to go with first, Andy? Yeah,
let's go with the money blog piece. I'm interested to find out more on that.
Okay, this piece it was actually inspired by a press article that I was included in about money bloggers and who can make and save you money. Now, I don't really class myself as a blogger as such. I was when I started, obviously 7 years ago, and then it blossomed into the website and podcast and books and everything that it is now. And obviously we get 1.5 million people a year use us online. So we've become much more of a platform and a website. So there is a fine line what is actually a blog, and these guys were included in ones to watch on this particular article, and I've picked 1 or 2 of them out of this article, but added 1 or 2 more that I think people will gain some use from if they follow them. They've got their own unique stories and they've got their own unique take on what they're doing. So I'm going to just jump right in on the first one on the list. There's a girl called, I shouldn't call her a girl, a lady called Emma Drew, and she runs a site that used to be called From Aldi to Harrods, so the 2 shop names, but she's obviously changed it for whatever reason. It's become emmadrew.info. Now, she ran a blog that was really full of tips about income and about how to make an income. That whole thing about what Americans call side hustles, so how you can boost your income. Now, one of her top tips, as it were, is to do the mystery shopping assignments online, which you can do. There's a number of different sites, like ukmarketfullshopper.com, which allows you to do mystery shopping assignments. So, fortnightly or something like that. So, have a look at her site. She's quite interesting because she does do something called matched betting, which we touched upon in a previous podcast, only in a fleeting mention of that it exists and as a way of making income. And she has got a group she set up on Facebook, which is worth looking into and joining. I think there's a couple of thousand people in it. And match betting is a means of using the offers that bookies online throw out there. So when you're watching the adverts and you get Paddy Power or whoever it is come up and say there's an offer on a particular football match or horse race, if you use those in conjunction with other offers that are out there from other bookmakers, you can actually get to a point where you can not lose on a bet, because the money you place is almost you get back from an offer, normally from another bookmaker, which offsets all the risk and you actually just cream a profit. Now, go and look at her site. She talks a lot about it. I think she has a course that explains about it. You can Google stuff online. But it's quite interesting. It's what they call, like I say, one of these side hustles. But you're not going to get rich. You're going to make, I think she actually made 12 grand in 1 year doing it. So have a look at Emma's site. I think it's quite neat. And she's got quite a nice story as well. And one of the others to look at is Be Clever With Your Cash. And now, this is run by a guy called Andy, who I know very well. He actually runs a group on Facebook of UK money bloggers. Now, if you want to know what the UK money bloggers are like, the universe of them is very splintered. I think there was probably only about 90 people who ever really had done anything of any substance where they haven't just given up. And of them, how many are still active is even fewer. What Andy did was try and get them together as a Facebook group. And he has, and it's a closed group for all the people who write. But as a result, they do a lot of stuff together, which is quite good, driven by Andy. And one of the things they do is, usually on a Monday night, they do a tweet meet. So anyone can go on Twitter and look at it. It normally has a hashtag of something around the UK money bloggers. And if you search it on Twitter, they talk about a new topic every week. And in a way, it's quite neat because you get all the different bloggers out there with their own take on things. It could be how to save money on your shopping, or it could be about clearing debt, and they have a new topic and someone hosts it and fires a series of 5 to 6 questions which everybody responds to, and actually they then take that and go on a Monday on Share Radio. I don't know if you've ever heard of Share Radio, but there's a Share Radio is an online radio station that talks about money, and they have lots and lots of shows. So if you like what we do, you might like what they do. It's a bigger, obviously, station. And they go on a show run by Georgie Frost, who is lovely. I know she listens to this podcast, so she'll probably love the nod. And they do a roundup on there of the best tips and stuff like that. So have a look at Andy's blog. He's a really nice bloke. He used to work, I don't know if he still does, for the Money Advice Service. So he obviously knows what he's talking about. And he has numerous tips, and one of them is, I'm just looking at something he's done here now. It's about stop paying on TV. And you can regularly find deals on Now TV, which includes all Sky TV and movie channels for under £9 a month, and it's just saving you $2.50 a year, which is quite nice. One of the others is Skint Dad. Now, Skint Dad is incredibly popular. Now, It's run by a guy called Ricky Willis, and again, I know him well. He's a really good bloke. He started off, I think, on his journey to do with repaying debt, but it became very popular because he's down to earth and he shares his story about how he achieved that, hence the name Skint Dad. And he rose to fame, as it were, because he won a competition that was pushed via Money Saving Expert, and he won a prize and some promotion for his blog. And it's gone from strength to strength, and he's very good at what he does. He engages people. He's launched some side projects from it, but he's brilliant at the money saving angle as well. But he's also very down to earth, and he's got some good stuff. He even does food, which is quite novel. He's got brilliant social media. He does Pinterest like nobody else I really know in that kind of money space. But he also, like I say, does food and stuff like that, about good ways to save money and make food. So have a look at that. Others that I like, just two more before we head on to the next topic, is Mrs. Mummypenny. So you can see what she did there. mrsmummypenny.co.uk, and that's run by someone called Lynn James. Now, Lynn is she's quite a character because she used to work in finance as well, but she decided to leave that and start to write Mrs. Mummypenny. And she again shares lots of stories about her life. It's much more sort of character in it, and she's quite outspoken about a number of things, but in a positive way in terms of doing things for brands and stuff like that. She's just launched a book in conjunction with one other writer about how to make money from blogging. So I've not read the book. I admit that, Lynn. I apologise if you're listening, but it's on my list to do. And have a read. You can buy it on Amazon. But if you're into trying to make money from blogging, then it's worth a look. The last one is somebody who I actually admire greatly of what she's achieved. There's a girl called Emma Mumford, and again, I should call her a lady really, and she writes a number of blogs actually. She does some beauty stuff, and there's one that she runs under the name Coupon Queen. So if you look for Coupon Queen, you will find her. And I think the actual web address is excoup.uk.com, so it's xcoop.uk.com. And she is incredible. She's 23, and again, her story is fascinating and enthralling, but she decided she wanted to help people with saving money, etc., etc., and has launched numerous different blogs, which some do with fashion. She does vlogging, which is unusual, very unusual to the others that I've listed, and she's become so successful at doing it that she even has a slot on This Morning, I think once a month, where she goes on and does a bit of money saving and coupon advice. So have a look at that. I mean, all of those taken in conjunction do something which is very, in their own way, it's got we've got a bit of money saving in there with Andy, Be Clever With Your Cash, and Skint Dad and Mrs. Mummypenny, but also an element of making money with Emma Drew and Mrs. Mummypenny's new book. And I think, taken as a whole, it's something which complements a lot of what we do. We do a lot of financial planning. We cover some of the stuff they do, but they also do it in a much more granular detail. So go check them out. Look at their social media, because they're all fascinating in their own way. And I think the podcast listeners will enjoy a lot of what they do.
Good stuff. Okay, yeah. On to the next subject. I think you talked about high end and how to control high end spending. Let's do that next.
Yeah, this piece was inspired by somebody, well, I won't read his full name, but David. Now, David wrote in and said he'd loved the book, the podcast, what we're doing, and just wondered if there was if we could talk about how to save money on high-end hobbies. And I'll read a part of his email out, and it says, I'm a semi-serious cyclist, and it's one aspect of my money that I cannot seem to control. I buy second-hand as much as possible every birthday. Xmas present for me is vouchers, and I keep up to date on offers from online retailers and shops by signing up for mailing lists. Still, though, looking back at my expenses for 2016, it seems to be where most of my discretionary spending is going. It's a hobby that you always need new latest stuff, blah 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 blah, and the marketing people know that and push things. He would love to hear if there's a way of, or if I had any advice on managing money for high-end hobbies like golf, etc., cycling included. Interesting question, really, because I got this question and I've been pondering what the answer actually is. And, I mean, Andy, jump in. You're a man with expensive hobbies, and you're a man who likes to move from one fad to the next and spend a lot of money. I can only give some of the advice that I've received or from other people that I've known that works. And in my world as a dad, an example that I've seen that works is to buy second-hand but sell at the same time second-hand. And I know David said he does buy second-hand, but I'll give you an example. I didn't know what Bowden was, okay? I don't know if you know what Bowden is, Andy. Probably everybody in the world knows what Bowden is, apart from me, I'm guessing. Do you know what Bowden is?
No.
Good. I'm not alone.
Is it outdoor clothing?
It is clothing. And anybody who has children and has friends who like to try and appear affluent, or who may be affluent, they will buy Bowden clothes, okay? They were called, I think it was a term that was basically Tory babies. It's the sort of thing David Cameron would dress all his kids and his family in. They're Bowden, it's a brand. And, of course, it's quite expensive. Now, I have known of somebody who was fairly frugal, who is obviously probably slightly obsessed with wearing this stuff and appearing affluent, I don't know. But they might just like the clothing, who knows. And they bought the stuff second-hand because it holds its value really well. I mean, it's not my thing, but it holds its value really well if you want to sell it second-hand. So what they would do is they would buy this clothing, keep it in immaculate condition, and as soon as their child outgrew it, because children grow so quick, and they probably, if you work it out, only wear some things a handful of times, especially if it's a gift or something like that, or something that's seasonal, and then they would sell it on, and they would get back the money that they bought it for, because let's say the person only wore it for a couple of months and the child obviously outgrew it, they would sell it back for the amount that they bought. So what they were doing was effectively just never paying for children's clothes in a way other than the initial outlay, and they were just buying this expensive brand, selling it back online for what they paid, so they could then buy the next size of all these things. So I actually admired them. I thought that was incredibly frugal. So applying that to a high-end sport, if you're going to buy the new thing or the latest thing, then you need to start selling the stuff that you've already got, because I know lots of people don't end up collecting it, but you can clearly end up making it in a way that you buy things that are going to not necessarily lose their value. I mean, the other things to try and dampen your enthusiasm for buying all this stuff is to obviously unsubscribe from your emails, but Gmail, which has got a nice link to the next piece, bearing in mind it's Gmail, they'll actually bulk merge promo emails that you get in your inbox, so you get one a week. You can set it to do that, so you just get this kind of mass that comes through, so you're not getting it every day, and in that way it kind of controls your spending, because the offers probably expire, so you're not getting, because don't forget, marketeers are very clever. They give you this scarcity, so they will send you something and say it runs out in 2 days or 24 hours, because it's proven to work. If you make something scarce, people will want to buy it. Well, if you automatically miss that deadline, then you can't buy it. And the other thing that it does is, there's a tip that people say when you want to buy something, there's a 48-hour calling off period, that rather than buy it there and then, you should go back in 2 days' time. And if in 2 days' time you still want to buy it, the chances are that it's worth the purchase and you do really want it, and therefore buy it. But you get over that initial enthusiasm and hunger for the new thing or the bargain, so it allows the messages to subside. And before you chuck in any tips you've got, Andy, because I'm talking a lot here, that one of the things I wouldn't be a bad idea is if David went back and he worked out how much he'd spent last year. He said he'd done it, and if he divided it by 12 and then worked out what his monthly expenditure was, because obviously expenditure on these items is fairly erratic and ad hoc, then he would probably have a much more clarity of how much because he knows how much he earns, and therefore he knows roughly what he gets paid an hour, and therefore he'll know how many hours he's got to work to get that item. If he breaks it down into that, he'll probably find he'll therefore not want to spend as much on the latest nutritional supplement, because when he works it out, he's going to have to work 2 hours to get it. The other thing that it does is that it allows you to start to think, well, do you know what, I'm not going to buy anything this month, and you kind of roll over what you would have spent into the next month, if that makes sense. So therefore you actually start trying to, in a way, save your monthly budget that you've worked out. You're kind of overspending, and then you feel a bit better then when you do buy something. But therefore, what it will do is it will start to make you think more about holding back for the thing you do really want, rather than just the latest stuff. So, I mean, they're my tips, Andy. If you've got anything you can chuck in, then do.
I really don't think I am qualified in any way to make any sort of comment on this, because I'm basically David times 1,000. I'm the guy that will buy anything that's a fad. I tell you what, the cooling off period thing is a really sensible idea. The problem with that is it does involve self-control, and obviously you're the person that's going to be administering that, and that is sometimes difficult because you get overcome with that sort of that adrenaline rush of having that new thing, and I just can't wait. I'm just always really excited to buy that thing, and then by the time it arrives, like you say, sometimes it'll take a week to arrive, and by that point you've forgotten you were even, excited about buying that thing. So
if you want some element of control, you just need to give your wife a stick of some kind, Andy. So she just whacks your hands, wraps it like they used to do at schools and things, across the knuckles when you're going to spend something.
Do you know what is quite a good thing is to, if you know you're going somewhere, say like to work or whatever, and you know you don't need your cards, let's say your credit cards or your debit cards, because you've got your travel pass in your wallet, you've got maybe £20 cash in the wallet, which will cover you for emergencies and food or a beer after work. Leave your cards at home. That honestly does help sometimes. I used to gamble, unfortunately, and this is in the days before they had apps and everything where it was really accessible. And I wouldn't say I had a problem with it, but let's just say I used to relax my attitudes towards the weekend, and I'd often find myself walking past the bookmakers and drawing out. So I used to leave my cards at home, and I had £20 in a wallet, and then there wasn't that temptation to draw money out and spend, needlessly spend money. So yeah, leave your cards at home if you can.
I think that's a good tip. If you want to have an insight to how relaxed Andy was on those situations, he was almost horizontal. He was that relaxed, weren't you, Andy? I mean, we've all done it. We've all been in times where we go crazy on spending. Do you remember I told the story? For anybody who listened to this podcast for the years that we've been running, we once told Andy and I made confessions about our most ridiculous purchase, and I'll just touch upon it. My ridiculous purchase was a tray. It was about 15 years ago, more than that, I think. And I was young and sort of slightly reckless, I suppose. And I bought a tray, it was a plastic tray, effectively, with little water jets that used to, when you turned your stereo up, it used to do water jets that danced in time with the music and flash lights. I found it, Andy. I went back to my parents' house recently, and it's still there. So I might have to resurrect that and film it and put it on our Facebook page, just so people can...
I tell you what, after you've put it on your Facebook page to show the listeners what it is that we were talking about, why don't you then put it on a buy and sell site and put your money where your mouth is, or,
Yeah, but do you know what's going to be amazing? Is that I just know it's not going to be worth what I paid for it. Now, just to show people that I am human, I'm like everybody else. I'm not one of these people who will sit there and make out that they've been amazing with money forever and you people out there are terrible. I think I paid about £200 for it at the time, which is... Yeah, I mean, that's the only word for it, really, Andy, isn't it? Wow. I mean, you just shake your head, really. I mean, Andy did say wow and almost smirk and shake his head. So, yeah, it was a wow moment. I think it was probably a peak and a low at the same time, if that can be possible. A sort of a low point in terms of my attitude towards money, and a peak in my frivolousness.
You got a wow from the guy who, around the same era, spent nearly £1,000 on an electric bike.
Yeah, Andy once bought a car he never drove because he couldn't drive. So yes, if I get a wow from Andy, I'm doing well. Anyway, we crack on the last two pieces before I depress myself. We had another question from Warren, actually, and his question was, he talks about that he's investing in a SIP and he's got a pension. He asked what sort of funds should he invest in. Now, obviously, anyone who listens to this podcast, I'm always going to suggest you have a look at 80/20 Investor, which is, again, doing really well. We're getting a lot of great feedback. I'm just updating all the stuff to do with building an income portfolio if you want to live off your funds, so therefore generating income. So it's worth joining and having a free trial just to look at that part. But the reason I mention it, I'm not going to say individual funds, because that obviously is very timely and people listen to this podcast in the future. But what I want to do is tell people I've just finished a new calculator which we've designed, and I've obviously done all the back end of it, but we've obviously got our IT guys to build, which costs obviously money and stuff, but it's definitely worth it. If you go to calculators.moneytothemasses.com/investment, so calculators.moneytothemasses.com/investment, what I've done is built a calculator that very simply you put your age in, and then you can vary it for the amount of risk you want to take, and it will give you a dummy portfolio in terms of where you should invest your money. So what percentage you should put in UK shares, American shares, in bonds, in property, cash, that sort of thing. And it's based upon some of the conventional wisdoms from a lot of the passive investments that are out there. And it's a nice starting point for people. It's a good, I suppose, check. And also just some people want to have an idea where they should be investing, because how do you know? It's one of the biggest questions that most asset and fund managers have. I mean, obviously, if you want to invest, you have a real passion or you have a real desire to invest all in shares, all in bonds, that's up to you. You do that. I use the momentum idea to influence my asset allocation for my £50,000 portfolio I run live on the site. But if you just want a fixed idea or something that if you stick to for the long term, certainly for your age, and you can vary it, and you can change your age on the calculator so you can see where you should be in 10, 20 years' time, then the tool will be useful. So go and have a look at that, Warren. I think it'd be useful, and if anybody else out there, have a play with it. I mean, there's nothing else out there like it, which is why I built it.
Good, and we did have some feedback from someone before that said we only ever read web addresses out once, and if we could give them a couple of times throughout the podcast. So give me that web address again, Damien.
Well, it's calculators.moneytothemasses.com/investment, and Andy always links to these things in the show notes anyway. Right, last piece, Andy, before we're going to wrap this amazing podcast up. Gmail scams. Now, there's been a scam that's gone out that's affecting Gmail customers, which is so convincing that even IT gurus have almost fallen foul of it, and some have. Now, I just want to quickly mention what it is. So if you do have Gmail, which a lot of people do, that you do keep an eye out. What the scam is, you will receive an email that will, for whatever reason, look very genuine, and it will have an attachment on it. And you go to click on that attachment, and what will happen is you'll be taken to a page that looks exactly the same as the login page for Gmail. So you think, okay, I've got to log in. So you start to enter your login details. What that page is a phishing scam. So that's phishing with a PH is the technical term. It's what they do is the scammers are redirecting you to a fake page that they built to look exactly like Gmail. And then when you put your details in, you've just given the details to that person. So they've taken your details, and then they are free to wreak havoc on your email. What makes it convincing is when they get into your email account, what they do is they then go and find an attachment within one of your emails and a subject line that's related, and they then forward it on to some of the people who it could be related to. So they actually almost try and replicate you in your behaviour. Now, you know, we get lots of emails that come through and you can spot them a mile off that they're fake, where it'll have, from somebody you know, a very weird hyperlink and not much else and lots of misspelling. Now, what they do in these new ones, they're a bit more sophisticated. They will take something like, there was an example of a student who had, there was an attachment to do with sign up for some course or something that was part of a club that he was at the university. And what they did is they went in and they took the attachment for that and the subject line that was relevant, and they then sent it to a whole bunch of other people who obviously then took it as being genuine because they'd received emails of a similar ilk from that person or from their sphere of people, i.e. at the university. So once they're in there, they can then pretty much control anything. They can reset your banking passwords, get hold of those things. So the important thing is what to look out for to not fall foul of it, because it all looks so genuine, and particularly the login page that they present you, which is fake. Always look for at the beginning of any web address, there should be that HTTPS, but there shouldn't be anything that's between the HTTPS part and the account.google.com bit. And in a lot of these new fake emails, there's normally something that says like the words data, text, /HTML or some other sort of prefix in there. That shouldn't be in there, because what they were doing, they're very clever. They were managing to keep the rest of the stuff that have the word Google in the URL as well. So people just go, I've never really noticed that bit, but it doesn't matter. It's got Google in it. It must be genuine. That's why they're able to do it. So if in doubt, one tip, always put two-step verification on any of your emails, whether it's Gmail or anything, and that's the process whereby you give them your mobile phone number in the settings of your email account, and then when you log in, it actually sends you a text message with a code which you then put in. Do it because it will be a lifesaver. I've seen stories where people have their accounts hijacked and then sold back to them at ransom, and it ruins their life, etc. So do that now. Go on there. It's very easy to do. It's very easy to set up. The other quick tip, and I write this email down and save it into your favourites. It's called millersmiles.co.uk. So Miller, MILLER, Smiles, SMILES.co.uk. And it is a very little known site, but it's an amazing database of existing phishing scam emails. So those sorts of emails just like this. So you can go on there and you could put subject headers in and you can check their database if something is real. So if you're not sure of an email, don't open attachments. Even if it seems genuine from somebody you know, you can always go and check some of this stuff if you're getting unwarranted emails. So it's a great database. I use it quite a bit, but I'm just not sure why it hasn't got a greater airing. So that's me done, Andy. We're done for another week. I've crammed in 4 pieces this week. It's like a bonus episode.
Yeah, good. Enjoyed it as always. Anything else to mention? Obviously the usual. If you can review the podcast, we've had some great downloads, great stats in the last week. If you are a new listener, thank you very much for joining us. And do spread the word. We love it when people spread the word. And also get in touch with Damien. Damien answers every single piece of correspondence that he receives. You can get in touch with Damien in a couple of different ways. The easiest is Damien@moneytothemasses.com, or Twitter, very accessible on Twitter as well, @moneytothemasses.
Yes, that's it, with the number 2 instead of the word 2.
Don't forget Facebook and Instagram.
Instagram, yeah, a lot of stuff on Instagram. We're doing quite a lot of Instagram, doing Facebook, YouTube videos as well. Ask Damien Fahy, actually, that's the hashtag. And I do videos 90 seconds long, that type of stuff, where I'm answering questions. So if you want more questions answered, then go there. Do leave a review, because if everybody who listened to this podcast left a review today, then we would immediately be way over. We'd be into the thousands of reviews. And although for a podcast we do have a lot of reviews, don't we, Andy? I think, but it's still only it's below 100. And so if you're listening to this, ask yourself this question: why have you not left a 5-star review? And if you haven't got a good answer to that, then shame on you, because we put a lot of effort into this and we do love what we do. But help us to reach more people and gain more fans and followers.
And that is the reason we ask for reviews. It's not because we're sort of egocentric. We don't sit there poring over the praise, late at night. It's literally because of the way that the algorithms are built up through iTunes. They look at sort of feedback and reviews and things like that as part of how they do their algorithms, and will promote the show more if we have more reviews. So it's down to your help that we can spread the love, spread the word, and don't forget, it's always free. So that's how you can repay us. Damien, back to you.
That's it, Andy, and until next week.
Don't forget to claim your free copy of Damien's best-selling book, The 30-Day Money Plan. Sort your finances in just 5 minutes a day, worth $4.99. Just go to moneytothemasses.com/podcast to find out how.